Imagine being left to die at 26,000 feet, no tent, no shelter, no hope. In minus 50 degrees Celsius, your companions? They moved the camp on purpose so you couldn't share their glory. This actually happened to a Pakistani man. While the men who betrayed him became national heroes back home in Italy, while Italy celebrated, while the world forgot. His name was Amir Mehdi. They called him the Hunza Tiger. And this is the story of how he was erased from history and the 60-year fight for the truth. 1954, K2, and a betrayal so cold it still echoes through the mountains today. To understand this story, you have to go to Hunza, tucked away in the Karakoram Mountains, connected to the rest of Pakistan by the legendary Karakoram Highway. This is where our story begins. Amir Mehdi was born here in 1913, in a small village called Hasanabad. Like many Hunza men, he grew up surrounded by the world's highest peaks. And like the best of them, he became a high-altitude port. By 1953, Mehdi had already proven himself on Nanga Parbat, the killer mountain. When Austrian climber Hermann Bull became the first to summit, he nearly died on the descent. Forced to spend the night standing on a narrow ledge, the next morning, he could barely move. Mehdi and another porter took turns carrying him on their backs down the mountain to safety. Word spread. When the Italians came calling for their 1950 K2 expedition, they went to the Mir of Hunza, the local ruler, and asked for the best porters. Hundreds showed up. Amir Mehdi was chosen. He was 41 years old. His dream, simple, to be the first Pakistani to put his country's flag on top of K2, the second highest mountain on earth, more dangerous than Everest. And he was about to get his chance. The 1950 Italian expedition was massive. 11 Italian climbers, 10 Hunza porters. Led by geologist Ardito Di Cio, they reached base camp on May 28, 1954. For weeks, they climbed, established camps higher and higher. The Italians picked two men for the summit attempt, Achille Compagnoni and Lino Lacedelli. But there was a problem. At 7,627 meters, they realized they'd run out of oxygen at the wrong camp. They needed more cylinders brought up fast. A young Italian climber named Walter Bonatti volunteered to carry them. But Bonatti couldn't do it alone. He needed a porter, someone strong, someone willing to risk everything. He asked the other porters. They refused. Too dangerous. Then he asked Amir Mehdi. Mehdi said yes. Why? Because he was promised something. A chance, a shot at the summit, the opportunity to be the first Pakistani on top of K2. So on July 28, 1954, he and Bonatti climbed into history. They climbed through the afternoon, heavy oxygen cylinders on their backs. The plan was simple: reach Camp 9 at around 8,000 meters, drop the oxygen, meet Compagnoni and Lacedelli, then descend. But as evening fell, something was wrong. The camp wasn't there. They climbed higher, shouted. No response. The temperature was dropping, fast. Finally, a shot came from above, but not from the camp they expected. The camp had been moved, higher, beyond their reach. A voice yelled down, "Leave the oxygen and go back." Go back, in the dark, impossible. They were trapped. At 8,100 meters. No tent, no shelter, no way down until morning. So they did the only thing they could. They huddled together on an ice ledge, in minus 50 degrees. At what became the highest open bivouac in mountaineering history, both prepared to die. Here's what they didn't know. Compagnoni had deliberately moved the camp. Why? Because he was afraid. Afraid that Bonatti, younger, stronger, fitter, would steal the summit. So he moved the tent and left two men to die. Later investigations would confirm this. Compagnoni admitted it. He wanted the glory for himself. And Amir Mehdi, he was just collateral damage. They survived the night, miraculously, but Mehdi wasn't wearing proper high-altitude boots. He had army boots, some say 2 sizes too small. The frostbite had already begun its work. The next morning, they left the oxygen and descended. Compagnoni and Lacedelli ticked it up. And on July 31, 1954, Compagnoni and Lacedelli became the first humans to summit K2. Italy went wild. They became national heroes. Compagnoni and Lacedelli's faces were everywhere. Books were written. careers made, fame and fortune follow. Meanwhile, Amir Mehdi was in a military hospital in Rawalpindi. He couldn't walk, the frostbite was so severe. Doctors had no choice. They amputated all his toes. 8 months. That's how long he stayed in hospital. 8 months. When he finally returned to his village in Hunza, he put away his ice axe and told his family, "I never want to see this again." Back home, the Pakistani press was furious. How could this happen? How could an Italian expedition leave a Pakistani porter to die? The government demanded answers. But here's where it gets worse. To protect Compagnoni, Italy needed a scapegoat. They chose Bonatti, accused him of reckless ambition. And when Mehdi was asked to give testimony in a language he didn't speak, written by officials he trusted, his words were twisted, used to destroy Bonatti's reputation instead of revealing the truth. For 40 years, Amir Mehdi lived in obscurity. He struggled to walk, struggled to work, struggled to feed his family. The Italian government sent him a certificate, made him a cavaliere, some honorary title, but it didn't pay the bills. In 1994, they brought them together. 40 years after K2, in Islamabad, Mehdi's son Sultan Ali was there. He watched his father, Compagnoni, and Lachedeli embrace and cry. Like babies, he said. None of them spoke the same language, but they all understood. They cried like babies when they hugged each other. Did anyone apologize? No, Mehdi never asked for one. And none was offered. He just held the men who had left him to die, and wept. 5 years later, in December 1999, Amir Mehdi passed away. Age 86, he never climbed again. Never got his moment of glory. Never saw the truth acknowledged. It took until 2004, 5 years after Mehdi's death, Lachedeli published his memoirs. Finally, the truth came out. He confirmed what Bonatti had always said. Compagnoni moved the camp deliberately. They knew Mehdi and Bonatti were out there. Amir Mehdi's story should be taught in every Pakistani school. He represents something we forget too often: the unsung heroes. The ones who carry others to glory and get left behind. Next time you see K2, the second highest peak on earth, towering over our northern areas, remember the man who almost made it, and the betrayal that stole his dream. If this story moved you, share it, let more Pakistanis know about Amir Mehdi, and subscribe for more untold stories from our history. Because some stories are too important to stay buried. I'll see you in the next one. If this story moved you, share it. Let more Pakistanis know about Amir Mehdi, and subscribe for more untold stories from our history. Because some stories are too important to stay buried. I'll see you in the next one.